Hustle culture and busy work. These are huge problems these days, whether you're in the medical field or anywhere else. You get rewarded for being busy rather than being productive, and you get graded for memorization rather than understanding. Now, unfortunately, our outdated education and medical education still promotes these things, and med school and life in general is very busy. There's a lot to learn and seemingly not enough hours in the day. But there are certain levels and strategies to studying that can make your efforts more fruitful and worthwhile. Now, this isn't going to be about motivating yourself to study or any of that. We already have posts about that stuff and sort of the frameworks and productivity, and you can check those out. This is more about the mechanics and technicalities of what you need to do. So the first time that you see information, you need to focus on genuinely understanding the foundational concepts. A lot of medical students, including me in the past, would start off on the wrong foot by thinking about the exam and tailoring their studying towards it. Most blocks are 4 to 6 weeks long, so the exam does not matter right now. You're in medical school to actually learn the information and then apply it to real people down the road. Exams are just a necessary evil that are important to pass, but they don't actually reflect understanding. Being a good test taker is a game and it can easily be manipulated. Actually understanding the information is where the value is. That's why you're there. That's why you're spending your time and money to be there. So during your first pass of the information, the priority is not the exam, it's understanding the foundations. So for example, the types of heart failure and their causes. You need to first understand how the heart works normally. Then you need to understand how the causes prevent it from working normally and drawing the connection between them. You need to understand the why. Why does this cause lead to this kind of heart failure? How does that make sense? I personally learned the best through videos for this kind of thing. So YouTube is full of great information, so is online med ed and Ninja Nerd, so use those. Personally, I worked up to 2 times the speed or faster, but you can work that up as you go along. But this is going to help you understand the foundations. And the school might not praise you for doing this. It might not even help you on the exam. And at the beginning, before you get efficient, you might find yourself spending even more time than you were before studying. And you might be spending more time than your classmates are. But again, it's worth it because you're here to learn how to be a doctor. A few years from now, when you get a 3 a.m. phone call as a resident or an attending about a patient in acute heart failure, you have to rely on your understanding of these foundations to make decisions, not a flashcard that you memorize to pass an exam. A lot of people start coasting when they get into med school because most of them are now pass-fail. They just want to pass the exam and they don't care about much else. I made this mistake on a block or 2 during my med school times, and I promised myself never again, because this leads to a lot of stress and poor performance later as a clerk and a resident when you have to make up for it and learn the information at that point. So again, I would use YouTube, online med ed, Ninja Nerd to understand these foundations. As you go through, make flashcards on Anki, which is my preference, or notes if you prefer, about the important points so you can keep reinforcing and understanding that foundation over time. Again, the exams are pretty garbage and we'll talk about them because they're necessary, but you need to take it into your own hands to make the effort to understand foundations. So now we move on to the next phase, which should start going much faster because you already have a strong grasp of the foundations from phase 1. Most med school exams are not great at testing what you actually know. They're a game that's played more through test-taking strategy, and so part of your studying does have to revolve around them. Now you can see our other videos about why we didn't go to class or how we studied to get an idea of structure. But the long and short of it is that at this stage, you need to use school-specific resources in combination with something like online med ed or an online resource that is quite frankly better at teaching medicine than most of these med schools are. So now you're going to go through your school's lectures, videos, notes, whatever, and make your flashcards or notes on the facts that you need to know for the exam and in general practice. So in the example from earlier with heart failure, this would be things like using Lasix or beta blockers or ACE inhibitors. In stage 1, you understood why we use these medications and how they help us in a situation with heart failure. And again, that's the important part. But in this stage, it's about memorizing which medications we use, their contraindications. So this is more tailored towards not only the exam, but real life as well, as you may not always have the textbook answers available to you in real life when it comes to that. This is things like memorizing the various causes of a disease, diagnostic tests, lab results you might expect to find, physical exam findings that you might expect to find. So all these things are being memorized for the exam, but underlying that, since you understand your foundation so well, they should all be making sense to you. If not, you need to go back to stage 1 and review your foundations. For example, you might memorize that jugular venous distension is a hallmark in right-sided heart failure, and that's great. But it shouldn't be some random fact that you're having to rote memorize. You should understand this for real life based on the foundations that you built up in stage 1, and that it intuitively makes sense. If the heart is failing on the right side where it normally receives venous return from the body, it makes sense that the blood would pool and back up away from the heart since it can't get into it. No fancy medical language, nothing like that, just complete understanding of the concept. This is going to make memorization way easier because again, you're not memorizing random facts. These are all things within the narrative of what you learned in your foundations. So now at this point, you have a strong foundation and understanding of the material for real life, which is the important part, and honestly, probably enough to pass the exam. At this point, once you're a week and a half out from the exam, now it's about continuing to do your due Anki cards or reviewing your notes for the foundations so they always stay strong. But at this point, anything new that we do is going to be focused on playing the school's game and doing what they're asking of us for the exam specifically. This is small details like dosages, bolded text from your lectures and slides, random facts that the professors brought up. Stuff that isn't really important from a conceptual level because in real life it can easily be Googled or referenced elsewhere. But right now you're at the test taking stage, so you're going to grab a sheet of paper and make a cheat sheet out of all these random things or stuff that just requires rote memorization or things that for whatever reason you're just having trouble remembering. So for this last week or so before the exam, this cheat sheet is all you really need to study. Then you're going to write the exam, delete this garbage from your brain, and move on. However, since you did it the right way, you're going to keep your foundations because obviously you're going to need those later. And they're going to be there because you did it the right way the first time around. Now again, you can check out our other videos for how to be productive and set up your day correctly to execute all this stuff, but it should really help you guys. I really wish someone sat me down the first day of med school and taught me how to study like this. But that's pretty much it for today, guys. Be sure to check the description for our newsletter and everything else we have going on, and we'll see you next time.